What's up, y'all? It's your boy SimplyFoodByTy. We're going to jump right into these ingredients, honey. So the first thing we're going to focus on is the red velvet cake itself. So we're going to add in 2.5 cups of cake flour, 1.5 cups of sugar. We're going to add in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We're going to add in 1 teaspoon of salt, and then, of course, the cocoa powder. We're going to add in a 1/2 tablespoon of that. Now, that's all you're going to need as far as the dry ingredients, so go on ahead and just give that a little mix around to make sure that the salt and the baking soda is mixed throughout, and then you can go on ahead and set that to the side for a second, and then we can focus on the wet ingredients. So as far as the wet ingredients, what you're going to need is 1 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We're also going to be adding in some delicious buttermilk. So that's about 1.5 cups worth of buttermilk. That is at room temperature. That is very, very important. Don't forget that. Make sure it's at room temperature. You're also going to need 2 large eggs. Also, you want that to be at room temperature. Pretty much everything for this, you want to kind of keep consistent to be around the same temperature. We're also going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of red food coloring, because, you know, that's just the way it is. And then we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of the white wine vinegar, and then, of course, a lovely tablespoon of the vanilla, and just go on ahead and give that a good mix. Now, if you are anti the food coloring thing, there's plenty of people that use beet juice. I don't do it. I don't understand it, so I don't mess with it. If you can find a natural food coloring, by all means, you can also do that as well. But the reason why you want to mix up all the wet ingredients first is so that we do not overmix this batter. That is extremely, extremely important. So that's why I would advise you to do the wet stuff separately from the dry. And then what we'll do is we'll start to gradually start to add those in. Now, I do it by thirds pretty much, just so that I can make sure that I'm getting it nice and mixed in, but that I don't have to keep these blades in there and just keep having it going and going and going and going. Because one of the easiest things to do in regards to making a red velvet cake is actually over mixing it. And that's the reason why a lot of the times that's why they're so tough and they're so dry. It's not because you didn't put in the right ingredients. It's honestly just because you've over mixed it. And I always like to say, and you guys will see me do it in a moment, once I start to see that the majority of the white has kind of disappeared in the bowl, I kind of stop mixing. As you can see, like, there's still a little bit left, but I just stopped because I know that I still have more flour to add, and you don't want to just keep pulverizing it because, like I said, that will completely dry it out. Now, one thing that will help, of course, is making sure that you are wiping down the sides, just so that you can make sure that nothing's really being caked up on, you know, any sides of the bowl. And now we can go in for the last bit of time with the hand mixer. Now, of course, if you're using a stand mixer, I would say probably do it roughly on about a level 1 or 2, depending upon how strong your stand mixer is. Just be mindful of that, because you truly don't want to overbeat it. As you can see here, I'm stopping with the machine just because I feel like it's done its job. And now I'm just going to go in with my little spatula or spoon, whatever you have handy, and just give it a mix around yourself, just to make sure that you've gotten everything off of the sides and make sure that you, you know, are getting everything mixed in from inside of the bowl. Go on ahead and have your oven preheated at 325 degrees. Now, y'all know I love using the Pan Perfect Release, the kind that's made with flour. That's key, made with flour. You spray this stuff on your 9-inch round baking pan. I promise you your cakes will come out with no problem whatsoever. Literally, it's never failed me. Now, what I would suggest is to do 1 cup's worth of the batter at a time. Roughly, I think this gave me about, I don't know, 2.5 cups worth. But just do it 1 cup at a time, and then just keep going between each pan. That way you can kind of keep a gauge on making sure that your cakes are going to be even. Like I said, you're going to put that in the oven at 325 degrees. Just give that a few pats down on the counter to get all the air bubbles out. And you're going to bake it for roughly about 20 to 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it. Once that toothpick comes out dry, take it out of the oven. Do not overcook it. Let it sit on the pans on the rack for about 10 minutes till the pan gets nice and warm to the touch, so that that cake can easily pop out. As you can see, they've come out perfectly. Sit them on the rack, let them cool, while we focus on now making the brownie part of this recipe. So for the brownie batter, what we're going to add in is 1 cup of sugar. We're going to be adding in 2 eggs, of course. We're going to be adding in some vanilla, which is 1 teaspoon. We're going to be adding in 1/3 cup of cocoa powder. We're also going to be adding in a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. You don't have to use cake flour. Just go on ahead and use regular old, all-purpose flour. We've also added in 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, and then of course I've added in roughly about a 1/2 cup, 4 tablespoons worth of melted butter. Should your batter start to look a little bit dry, you can always add in a little bit more, but you really shouldn't need to. The same thing kind of goes here with the brownie batter. You don't want to overmix this. Honestly, once it looks like all that flour's been mixed in, turn the machine off, get yourself a spoon, get down on the sides of the bowl, and just mix it up by hand. That way you don't end up with a tough brownie. You really want to make sure that the brownie kind of, I don't want to say this is a fudge brownie, but it is very, very soft to the bite. And it's very luscious. This isn't a very firm brownie. And that really will depend on how much you decide to not overmix it. I'm just using, the standard 9-inch round pan. You want to make sure that you're using the same size pan that you use for the cake so that, of course, the brownie can lay down on top of the cake as the same dimensions as everything else. And just kind of smooth it out. I bake this in the oven at 350 degrees, probably for about 20 to 30 minutes. It really will depend on your oven. You guys know the trick. Get yourself a toothpick, stick it inside of the pan. Once you do that, if it comes out clean, take it out. Make sure you sit this on a cooling rack and make sure it is completely cool. That is the key for all of this from this point forward, is just making sure that the cakes are cool and that the brownies are completely cool. If you skip this step, if you rush it, you're going to end up with a big mess, and I really don't want you guys to have to deal with that. Now, I am not no cake designer, so I just want to make that very, very clear. Honey, I just make things work, you know what I mean? And you guys are going to see me do this entire thing right with that butter knife. I don't have no whole bunch of fancy utensils. Ain't nobody got time for that. Now, I put a little bit of icing on the bottom just so that the cake won't go sliding around too much. And now I'm just spreading out. This is cream cheese icing. I did not make this homemade. You absolutely can if you want to. If you guys want me to do a recipe video on how to make homemade cream cheese icing, just let me know and I will do so. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put the brownie on in the middle. As you can see, I was kind of rushing, so that's why that brownie kind of cracked, but it's completely okay. Now, I will say one of the other reasons why you do want to make sure that you completely wait for it to cool, because the more you start working around with the icing and stuff, the cake will start to pull up and then it's going to end up all over the icing, and you don't want that. Now, I ended up, for this size cake, I ended up using, I think it was 3 tubs of the cream cheese icing. Now, what I will say, as you guys can see, my cakes are very, very thin. That's the way that I prefer for them to be. Just because to me, this cake is very, very rich, and I just don't think that it needs 2 giant red velvet cakes and that brownie. Now, I will say straight off the jump, if you are not a sweets person, this is probably not going to be the cake for you. This is definitely meant for somebody that loves sweets. So as you guys can see, I kind of just did some makeshift stuff. I got the icing on there, cleaned it up around the sides. I bought that little piping bag, I think for, I don't know, like 99 cents. And now I just took some of that leftover cream cheese icing. I put a couple of droplets of that red food coloring in it, put it right into the same bag. And then I just used the exact same piping tool and I just did it on the top. And that's pretty much all that I did, you guys. I know this probably seemed like a lot of ingredients, but it actually is extremely easy to make. And like I said, if you are a sweets person, you will absolutely enjoy this. And honestly, you can decorate this however you would like. If you are a baker, if you are one that loves actually designing cakes, by all means, you can get crazy, do what you want. This is me pretty much just trying to make it pretty for y'all. Look, if you are new to my channel, I want to welcome you to Simply Food by TY. If you're one of my returning subscribers, well, y'all babies know I love y'all so much. And as always, y'all babies stay cute and take care. I hope you guys enjoy this cake. It is absolutely fabulous.
In the kitchen. Simply Food by TY. We hope that you enjoyed it. Simply Food by TY. If you haven't took the time, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Simply Food.